If you've made the decision to level your home and build new or to renovate, hire Better Futures Minnesota to take it apart by hand. Think before you scrap. Think of the energy and greenhouse gases saved by diverting what can be reused and recycled from the landfill. Better Futures Minnesota can do it for you. Hennepin County residents and public entities, there are funds available to make the environmentally right thing to do comparable to demolition. Check out betterfuturesminnesota.com. That's betterfuturesminnesota.com.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 63. Sunshine Tuesday with a high of 83. Then partly cloudy Tuesday night with a low of 59. Celebrate the arrival of summer with a great meal at an Eat Local Minnesota restaurant, perfect for any occasion. Check out the list of Eat Local Minnesota restaurants at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events, and as you know, Haley, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
You're absolutely right, Daga, and this portion of the show is supported by the Native American Community Development Institute in Minneapolis.
Hey, we're blessed to have Arvina Martin on again, the first Native person to, in Madison, Wisconsin's Common Council, serve as a alder from 2017 to 22, served as a council vice president 2021, and now is executive director of Emerge Wisconsin. And that's an organization that trains Democratic women on how to run for office. Pinigigi, thank you so much again for stopping in and checking in, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, Pinigigi, good to see you too. Hinikaragi.
Right on. Hey, good to hear that language going on. We got 3 Ho Chunks on right now, and we're taking over the world here.
Yay.
Cool. So what is going on? We can talk a little politics and then jump into what you do and the support that you give women in running for office, which I feel like is a huge deal. And you're also in belong in a national organization. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening here. Trump is going to go down. Are we going to turn blue in Wisconsin? What's happening? What do you see in your crystal ball here?
You know, I got burned in 2016 thinking about, oh yeah, but Trump will drop out once they make him, turn in his or submit his taxes or whatever. He's not going to do anything. And then here he was the nominee and then got elected. So I mean, he's such a wild card that I never kind of know what to expect with him. I do know that people in Wisconsin, though, are sick of the kind of divisive politics that he puts out and that he runs on. But what it comes down to is getting people out on election day, and Democrats and folks that are independent and folks that are really going to have to get to the polls, and we're going to have to work really hard to make sure we get those people out to vote, whether it is on election day or early vote. So it's all turnout that day. We work super hard for that one day, and fingers crossed we can keep up our efforts the way we have been. The spring election had an incredible turnout for the Supreme Court race, and we were all prepared to be staying up real late that night to watch the returns. We weren't sure who was, when we were going to find out, and we're thinking, oh, maybe not even that Tuesday night, maybe we're gonna have to wait. But 10:30 was around, and it was done, and she just won by Janet Protasewicz, our incoming Supreme Court justice. It just won by such a landslide. She even won in areas considered red. She won the city of Waukesha, which is still astounds me. She made a lot of inroads, and we have to keep up the work that we put in for the spring election. We've got to carry that momentum into next fall.
Wow, absolutely. There's two things that you said. One of them, I worked on the name Protasewicz. She was on our show, and we also did some ads for her, and we feel responsible in helping that election. That's a really good point. Then I want to talk a little bit about, when the primaries were happening in 2016, I told my wife, I'm saying there's no way he's going to win this one. And like you said, the nightmare kept on going. And when he said that he could shoot somebody down Fifth Avenue and kill him and not get put in jail, he was absolutely right.
Absolutely. And it's, I mean, we are now several years past that, and it's still, to me, like if somebody wrote a movie script and pitched it, they'd be like, no, this is absolutely absurd. It's not realistic. It's, no one's going to believe anything like that would happen. And sure enough, that's how it went. And I just, the entire 4 years during his term, I feel like every time I turned on the news, it was something just completely ridiculous and stuff that you'd never ever expect to happen, in the US or like with a president. And sure enough, they were happening, and it still boggles my mind. I still can't believe that we lived through that era.
Wow, and I hope we don't live through it again, because it sounds like he's leading the way. And it's funny, I don't know if I said this last time we talked, but I'll never forget, he was president for a year, and it was like I saw this baseball cap, on my feed on Facebook or whatever, and it was a red hat, and it said, "Make racists afraid again." And that's kind of he ignited some kind of lower end people that maybe haven't had a voice and felt like they do have a voice because 70 million people voted for him. And I know people who voted for him.
Yep. The same thing. And there were and I know many people who, and it breaks my heart to know that a lot of people didn't vote for Secretary Clinton because they just didn't like her or didn't like her husband. And instead of voting for the person who was competent, they voted for someone, he's not going to win anyways. And then he did. I mean, our vote is something so important to just kind of, our choices are the names on the ballot, basically. And one of them is likely going to win unless you're a ho-chunk and you've got an 11-way primary for president and you get a write-in campaign. But to use your vote in such a way just makes me sad. It makes me sad that people thought like that, and that even today every time you hear a Republican congressman or senator or somebody, a pundit on TV, they'll be like, yeah, he's nuts. I can't believe he did this. Or, that's not okay. Or he needs to condemn the actions of January 6th. And then the next question is always, well, will you vote for him? And they're like, well, probably. It's like,
right.
Come on. You can do something about this by not voting for him.
Well, there's a couple things too before we go on break. One of the things I got to not correct you, but I got to say he has not won the popular vote yet.
Correct.
And that's a thing to think about when we're talking about campaign changing the laws and go to the popular vote instead of all this nonsense with electoral votes and so it's yeah, and I'm just flabbergasted, and he might be running for president in prison, and might get 70 million votes again.
As long as there's 70 million votes that are not, in states that we need them to be. But I do think we have seen a lot of the backlash, with the very outlandish candidates put forth by Republicans here in Wisconsin were not supported, and no one, but I mean not no one, but they were not. They did very poorly at the polls.
And that's kind of a national trend right now. And let's hope that Gen Zs keep voting, because what a great block they've become, and hopefully our other aged relatives can join in, because the future is now. Hey, we'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us. Native Roots Radio.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hey, this is Robert Pilot. I taught in St. Paul Public Schools for over 25 years, and I want you to join the team and make a difference in our children's future. Right now, St. Paul Public Schools is offering hiring and retention bonuses up to $10,000 for a variety of teaching and classroom support positions for the next school year. grow in a supportive and fulfilling public school setting. Limited bonuses are available, so don't delay. Apply at spps.org/careers.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Then we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with Arvina and Martin, and we're talking a little politics. I'm kind of reliving my the worst dreams I had 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's good to talk, and we have to talk these out. And again, we were kind of ending on and you're also the executive director of Emerge Wisconsin, which is definitely a huge deal here on Turtle Island, and to help support women, Democratic women, to run for office. I just have a quick question about that. Who have you worked with lately, or can you give some names of who your organization has worked with to help women start running for office? You were on mute, but I can see your lips moving.
We have two of our statewide electeds who are Emerge Wisconsin alums. Former state treasurer and current secretary of state Sarah Godlewski is an Emerge alum, as well as Department of Instruction superintendent, so public schools superintendent Jill Underly is one of our alums. And if you go into the state Senate, the minority leader, so the Democratic leader in the state Senate is Senator Melissa Agard. She's one of our alums. We have numerous members in both our state assembly and the state Senate. We actually got elected a new mayor in the city of Middleton, which is right next to Madison. For those who aren't familiar, the new mayor of Middleton is also an Emerge alum. So we've got people all over the state. Robert, you and I were sitting at the Clean Lakes Alliance breakfast and event a few weeks ago, and almost every name that they announced was one of our alums. So we've got people everywhere, and we're looking to get more, especially outside of Madison and Milwaukee. We want to get folks up in Black River Falls and in Wittenberg and in Nakusa, up to Crandon and such. We need to get more Native people elected to bodies in our own tribal communities.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder what did Sharice did she work with the group? Because again, she kind of came out of, I'm talking about Sharice Davids, who's Ho Chunk, who's been on the show many times. How did she get her start? Because I know she was in DC for a while, and I can't remember what she was doing, but
she was a White House fellow, so she did a lot. She's an attorney by trade, so she did a lot of work. And I can't remember specifically policy what she did, but she did work as one of the White House fellows. Before that, she had, I believe, a podcast, and she did a lot of work with entrepreneurs and business startups, and she's just awesome. I remember when she sent me a message saying she was running for Congress, and I was like, "Where's your ACLU? Let me donate money now." I was so excited, and actually I was doing voter protection that year, 2018, and so I was we call it the boiler room, so like where people would call if folks were having problems at the polls. It was a room full of attorneys and people that knew about voter protection issues and how to make sure that people could cast their ballots. And her race got called, and I was full on sobbing in that room, like no windows or anything. I was so emotional. And then like an hour later, now Secretary Deb Haaland, who is an Emerge New Mexico alum. Yeah. So she won like an hour later, and if you didn't know me, you would have thought I was really upset, but I was just so overcome I couldn't believe that we had gone from no Native women in Congress to 2 in like an hour. And it just, I still get like, I've got chills right now just thinking of those 2 moments. I'm sitting in that room while trying to make sure that other people were getting their ballots cast and counted.
Wow. And go back to what we were saying earlier too, getting gerrymandered. I know Sharice got gerrymandered the heck out of her too. And I know a good friend of ours who's been on the show many, many, many times, Ruth Buffalo, got gerrymandered right out of her seat. And are we going to see the end of this soon? And especially in Wisconsin with a new Supreme Court justice?
I mean, we all have our fingers crossed. I mean, now I've mentioned crying on election night a couple of times, but when Justice-elect Protasewicz got elected and when they called it for her, it was the same kind of like emotion. I couldn't have, I was like, is this what hope feels like? It's been so hard for so long. And it finally felt like this could be a crack that breaks this all up. And, I know that there are groups that are planning to file suit regarding legislative border districts and their borders. And so, fingers crossed that those get there and the justices are able to, make a decision that's not based on partisanship. I was going to say, it's absolutely, mind-boggling again, I don't know if I have the numbers correct. I probably don't, but it seemed like it was like close to 2/3 of the votes in Wisconsin had gone to legislative candidates, had gone to Democrats, but it was like 2/3 of Republicans won. That's probably not, I should take those numbers back, but
there's a weird number in Wisconsin, and maybe you can help me with this. In order for a Democrat to win, they have to have 60% of the vote. In order for a Republican to win, they have to have like 40% of the vote or something like that. That's how gerrymandered it is.
Something like that. I mean, it's really ridiculous, and all the Democrats getting stacked and packed into very tight districts and especially Dane County and Milwaukee County, which Dane County is where the capital Madison is, where I live, and then just everything is. If you look at the lines, there's nothing. I mean, we talk about the gold standard being the Iowa model and how, things that they are supposed to consider include, compactness. And you can't look at any of these gerrymandered districts and be like, yeah, that's compact when they sneak around and are like, look, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
So fingers crossed on that. When I was on Common Council, I was part of our redistricting committee in Madison to decide the wards, as well as are the building blocks of like all of the other legislative districts, as well as our aldermanic districts. And it was a lot of work and to put in and make sure that you were trying to follow all of the rules that the federal government provides for creating these districts. I mean, and I took that really seriously. It's sad that others don't.
I was going to say is a couple cycles ago, we were really pumping it up here on Native Roots Radio, and we were getting all the politicians. We had 13 Native American politicians running for office, or we had 14, and 13 of them won.
Nice.
And I remember having Trisha Zunker on, who to me would have been such a great choice, but she got gerrymandered by, I don't know, can I say this without getting sued? Somebody insane. It was like, what the heck?
It's that district is wild. I also think that if you look at it, there are tribes that were split up in districts at the congressional level, as well as at the state legislative level, by design, I'm sure, to weaken the power of the Native vote. And that makes me really angry. Point where I can't even say anything.
No, I get it. And
the vein in my head, starting to pop out thinking about it.
wow. Well, that's crazy. But we are hoping that the Gen Zs and having your voice on our show and because I want to just say this, we outnumber them. We just have to engage our people. I mean, I was a big Bernie supporter, but when that all ended twice, I was a little butthurt, but I moved on because you don't want to be a contrarian because you end up with somebody like Trump.
Exactly. That's and like we said before, there's 2 names on that ballot for president, and you have to choose one of them. And my choice in 2020 was I really liked Julian Castro, and he dropped out before I could vote for him, and that made me really sad. But it is what it is, and I was ready to go hard for our now president, and it was awesome. It was great when he won. I still can't believe.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was such a relief. Well, Arvina, thank you so much for being on. I really enjoy these, and these go quick. So
they do.
Wow. We'll have to have you on a full show soon, but I really appreciate you being on and just having a chat and talking about our families and also how close we are from Minnesota and Wisconsin. And no, just kidding. All right. Hey, we'll be right back with Dr. Stately, CEO of Native American Community Clinic. Stay with us.
No matter if you're eating out or cooking something at home, eatlocalminnesota.com has you covered with a list of locally owned restaurants and food purveyors. Many restaurants offer carry-out and delivery, while food purveyors can help you make your next meal delicious. Latunji's Palette is a social enterprise built with purpose and fortified with love. Indulge in the world's best peach cobbler, gourmet desserts, vegan and gluten-free options, sandwiches, and coffee drinks. Located at 1400 Park Avenue South in Minneapolis. Plus, find Latunji's gourmet desserts at Lunds and Byerly's at the North Market, Minneapolis Farmers Market Annex, and Bobby and Steve's. More at latunjispalette.com. Explore the award-winning spirited Midwestern flavors at 30 Bales in Hopkins. Priding themselves as a scratch kitchen using the cleanest, most local ingredients they can source, join 30 Bales for lunch, dinner, or their scrumptious weekend brunch. Conveniently located at 1106 Main Street in Hopkins with plenty of free parking. See their menu at 30bales.com.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Many car dealers will quote safety stats, but firsthand experience really tells the story. When I bought my 2017 Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota, the service manager told me it was one of their safest vehicles ever made. Then I saw it for myself. A car hit me at 35 miles per hour, and the Sienna saved me. Its design absorbed the collision, and although it took a wallop, I walked away, and I now have a 2022 Sienna. When it comes to safety, I personally vouch for Toyotas. Be safe and get one today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tanky.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Tune in to AM 950's newest show, Searching for Service, a show designed to help current and future Rotarians find purpose through service.
We are dedicated to sharing stories, experiences, and opportunities for those searching for purpose, value, and meaning.
But more importantly, connection through community. Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcasts.
It's time to stop searching and start serving.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Hello, this is Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio. Now my show will be on Saturdays from 10 to 11 and replayed on Sundays from 1 to 2. You will get to the best of Ellie 2.0 with talking about idealism, with guests who come in and who are idealistic, who are trying to change the world, and you will get me, Super Idealist. Tune in. We can't wait to hear from you, and you'll hear from me Saturdays from 10 to 11.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 63. Sunshine Tuesday with a high of 83. Then partly cloudy Tuesday night with a low of 59. Celebrate the arrival of summer with a great meal at an Eat Local Minnesota restaurant. Perfect for any occasion. Check out the list of Eat Local Minnesota restaurants at eatlocalminnesota.com.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit of the Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis, honoring health and tradition.
Yes, they are. And wow, we're really excited to always have Dr. Stately stop in and give us his wisdom. And I have to congratulate you both. Haley and I were at your 20th anniversary celebration, and what an awesome celebration that was. And thank you for the invite.
Oh, thank you for coming. It was awesome to see you there, and nice to meet Haley in person on that day. It was kind of a cold day, though, huh?
Yeah.
A brisk
yeah.
day.
I was wearing shorts and I was shivering. So they were sacred shorts, though, Dr. Stately.
Yeah, I'm sure. Never mind. I was going to say something and I just realized it's a little slightly inappropriate. So
yeah, this is not
we'll we'll leave it like right there. Let the audience use their imagination.
Exactly.
I was going to say they're very holy. Just kidding.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful day, and it was such a hub of activity, and it was, just I saw so many faces I hadn't seen in a while, and I also met some new people and had some great conversations. It was a lot of fun, a great celebration. We, on that day, we honored our founders. So the 4 practitioners that established NAC, the ones that sort of, put their heart and soul into the beginning of into their clinic at their humble beginnings. We had, like, when we first started out, apparently, I've read newspaper reports, but also talked to the original CEO, who was Dr. Leah Karos, and they had one little tiny part in that big strip mall that used to be part of Dollar Tree, and I think at one point in time it was a Walgreens. At one point in time there was an auto shop and a few other things in the strip mall. They all 4 of them, left IHB in 2003, helped establish that clinic. Response to the community was, loud and excited and very committed. Like, we need you to stay in our community. And here we are 20 years later, and we have a lot of the same sort of that spirit that started the clinic is alive and well in our clinic. We work really hard to have good relationships with our community people. So,
Yes, and I think you do. Everyone I ran into that works with you, and just totally positive and very welcoming, and on a mission of goodness. It's funny, we talk about Franklin Avenue, and you and I haven't really talked deep about Franklin Avenue the way it used to be, and how that's changed over the years.
oh yeah,
Bars and all those Indian bars, and the police
yep,
arresting people
yep,
out of the back.
yep. So different than what it was when I was a young boy. I grew up in well, I was born in 1962, so 60 years ago. And yeah, and grew up on Franklin Avenue for the most part. My parents were products of the Relocation Act that encouraged people to move off the reservation to urban locations. My grandparents' home as a child. My great grandparents was my mother's grandparents, Paul and Margaret LaRock. They had a house across the street from Holy Rosary Church and South High School, the original South High School, which is now where Littler sits. And I remember being a little boy and playing, on that block, and we would sit on my grandparents' front porch, and we would throw rocks, not at the church. So, just, for those holy rollers, just kind of calm down. But there were like, South High was like closed because they were building a new South High to the south up by where the current location is. But we'd throw rocks at that building and break windows, and, the game was like who could get the highest, and break some of those highest windows way at the top of the school. And I was just a little tiny kid, so I didn't get to, break a whole lot of windows, but my older brothers and sisters did. But, those times were different then. And Franklin Avenue was almost all bars or liquor stores, right? And I think in a 4 or 5 block stretch between, Bloomington Avenue to like Chicago, just an alliteration of bars and liquor stores. And that's kind of how I grew up when I was living in South Minneapolis as a child.
Right.
And then I went away in my early 20s rather, and came back in my mid 40s after I had kids. And it was completely different. I was really floored at the transformation. Some of that stuff had started taking place by the time I left. The shopping center that NAC is part of, which is now called the Indian Traders Market, but that was built by the American Indian Business Development Corporation. And my older sister Becky, was roommates with Brenda Draves, who was the executive director of AIC BDC. And I remember the day that shopping mall opened, right? I was a young man and just barely, I think, just out of college, maybe in 1980 something. So things have really transformed.
Were you in town when, and I believe that was the early 90s, when the police threw the Native Americans in the trunk to arrest them? Do you remember that, or you weren't in town then?
No, but I remember hearing stories about it. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, but AIM started because women in our community got together because they were tired of hearing horror stories about their men and their sons and other folks in our community, being targeted, beaten by cops, just the horrible things that have been happening all throughout the late 60s, early 70s, mid 60s. It was the height of the civil rights movement, right? So all across America and all on our TVs, we were seeing the civil rights sort of movement happen, and all of the sort of like the, communities in both urban and rural areas standing up to discrimination against Black people, and we weren't really seeing that type of sort of movement in urban areas or in reservation communities against tribes, right, and tribal people. And that was the impetus, I think, for for AIM, which initially I think was called, my mom said it was called Concerned Indian Americans, and then they realized it was, the acronym was CIA, and they're like, oh, we don't want to be confused with those people.
Right, exactly. Well, and then too, you had the Black Panthers and radical groups like that were coming out that a lot of the leaders were looking at with all the movement that they were having, and it was pretty exciting times. But also, I think a lot of us natives were feeling a little left out, and so that's part of starting American Indian movement too, with the elders' blessings. I do have to throw that out there too, and that's one of the things. Me being an elder now, looking at the elders then, they had their elders.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big part of that history, and we don't often talk about that a whole lot in our community. I think we also don't talk about it. So it's not, the things that are true about like the beginnings of the movement and all of those things that sort of were the catalyst for that movement are not things that are quite as sexy as, the things that kind of came in the, the early 70s all the way up through the 80s, right? Like, hearing that elders, sort of kind of like talk to the younger people, those younger adults, give them their blessing, encouragement, to stand up and protect their communities and their people and their families. That's not quite as sexy as like Wounded Knee, right? So those are the things that like stand out in our history because, those are the things that were reported in like, on on CBS News, Walter Cronkite, and those kinds of things. Well, those are definitely pivotal times, but I think what oftentimes gets overlooked is the groundswell, right? The things that had happened that built up the momentum and the energy to sort of like step into space and transform it. And we come from, in Minnesota, in South Minneapolis specifically, we emerged from that primordial ooze, that sort of that warrior spirit, step up and protect your elders, protect your children, protect the community, protect our culture and language. And that's that impetus to sort of like step forward and speak up and do what's necessary, right? And I'd like to think that spirit lives inside me, right? That spirit that my mother and many of my relatives had.
Well, it definitely does. And I was just going to mention that not only you, but we have like people like Stephanie Autumn, who was young during Wounded Knee, who's still doing things, but it's just not the fanfare. And, we had Madonna Thunderhawk on last week, and she was talking about, raising your children is in the right way, doing things and community and not with the fanfare is being a warrior. And I think, we don't need a TV camera to see that Dr. Stately's doing all these great things for the community. So it's a shift. But sometimes, like with Standing Rock, we had to pull out a can of and really dig in our heels and let people know all over the world that we're still here. So why don't we take a quick break, Dr. Stately? I'm here with Dr. Stately, CEO of Native American Community Clinic, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Life is a journey, and the University Thomas will help you get where you want to go. Located in downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality at Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas. Apply today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
When it comes to mental health, making connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Connections can bring comfort, hope, and joy. Find ways that work for yourself and others, like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, creating space to listen. Visit cmentalhealth.org. That's cmentalhealth.org. cmentalhealth.org. Hey, this is Robert Pilot. I taught in St. Paul Public Schools for over 25 years, and I want you to join the team and make a difference in our children's future. Right now, St. Paul Public Schools is offering hiring and retention bonuses up to $10,000 for a variety of teaching and classroom support positions for the next school year. Grow in a supportive and fulfilling public school setting. Limited bonuses are available, so don't delay. Apply at spps.org/careers.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Wow. Hey, we're here with Dr. Stately and the CEO of Native American Community Clinic. And also, I just have a quick update here from State Representative Jamie Becker-Finn. Leech Lake Health and Wellness Center in Cass Lake just passed the Minnesota legislature. This is 8 minutes ago, $24 million grant to Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe for the center that will provide health, wellness, community gatherings, and opportunities. And I know Dr. Stately has been working hard with his clinic and dealing with the legislature, and there's great things happening down the line for Native American Community Clinic. And Dr. Stately, are you on right now? That would be a no. So, Haley, Dr. Stately was talking about the history of AIM, and we were talking a lot about, what AIM has done, but also to be, to be a warrior is many different facets. There's many different ways to be.
Right. And I think like what he was saying too, like just feeling that in your soul, the warrior spirit that was, instilled by our ancestors. I think a lot of us can agree with that we feel that too. That warrior.
Exactly. Dr. Stately, are you here? Looks like he's muted. And again, what great news for Leech Lake, which is for our relatives listening to us all over the country here, is northern Minnesota. And it's up there where we need help on our reservations. And it looks like the state of Minnesota is coming through with this bill, So it's just a really, really good thing to have that happen. And with the trifecta, Haley, we've been really blessed and lucky to have all these really good things happening in a good way here in Minnesota. And I know the Republicans want to give back the money to rich people and, the 1% that doesn't pay anything in taxes, but yet the Democrats have always been for the underdog and the poor person. So
right.
That's a thing that we always have to remain, because they may be speaking one way, meaning the Republicans, but they sure act the other way. And we are so blessed to have the trifecta here in Minnesota. I know I say that over and over and over again, but we really are blessed here in Minnesota. Hey, welcome back, Dr. Stately.
Hey there, welcome back. Sorry,
I have the worst internet in Prior Lake. Like, I would tell anybody writ large in the state of Minnesota, don't move to Prior Lake if you want good internet. Move to the community around it.
Somebody's jumping on your internet and knocking you off, probably driving around the neighborhood.
No, there's that too. And we only have like 2 little tiny internet providers in Prior Lake. They're not any of the big ones. They're like 2 smaller ones, Mediacom and Nuvera, which arguably are not like mom and pop shops, but they certainly function like it. We have the worst internet. Like, we need fiber cable out here. Like, I hope that the Gov, who just passed that big, huge infrastructure bill, puts some money in there for fiber optics for smaller communities, because it'd be nice to not have to rely on those 2 squirrels that have to run in the backyard to produce the energy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've been keeping track, but I just saw on Facebook Jamie Becker-Finn put up this thing that Leech Lake Health and Wellness Center just passed 12 minutes ago, $24 million grant to Leech Lake. So I believe your clinic's up next here very soon, and it's exciting.
Well, it was a part of that same bill. Yeah, part of the same bill. I think it just passed the House. So the bill goes onto the governor's office for signature. So once that's done, I think. But that's exciting.
Well, I'm wondering, how do I get in that?
There's a few native projects in there.
How do I get in that photo op? Do I just stand in there looking like the custodian from Native American Community Clinic?
There you go. Wear your janitor, outfit, and like, we'll get you a little push broom out there. There you go, your Dickies, and I guess you're not supposed to call them janitors anymore. That's, I guess, such a 1980 term. It's like industrial agent or something like that. I don't know what they call them now.
Well, I know they used to be called custodial engineers, and that's people that had the engineer like, on the boilers. That's what my dad did for 30 years in public schools.
Yeah. I wanted to tell you that about I kind of got in a little bit and then I got kicked off again. You guys are talking about warrior spirit and stuff. And I think that stuff is embedded in our DNA as Native people. We are, it's part of our original instructions. It's part of who we are taught to be in our value structure, which is protect our vulnerable ones, right? That whole concept of like the buffalo in the storm, the vulnerable people go to the middle and the warriors surround them, the people who are the strongest, and we push through adversity and we get to the other side. And that's kind of like how we've always been. It's part of how we sort of survived as long as we've survived in the face of 500-600 years of colonization and genocide, right? But I was going to say that NAC is hosting a community camp next weekend during Memorial Day weekend for young Native men from the ages of, I think, 18 to 30. And it's called the Young Warriors Camp. We did this in response to people telling us that they felt like there was very little services for young men, and that young men were feeling dispirited and having really difficult times during the last several years, and that we needed to create some programming for young men to sort of like help them to begin to think through, be in spaces and places with older men, elder men who are walking in that good way every single day and demonstrating what it means to be a modern day warrior, what that looks like. Doesn't look like going to fisticuffs and shooting bullets at each other and burning down buildings and those kinds of things. Warriorhood was about the protection of women, the protection of elders, the protection of children, our language, our culture, our right to exist and to practice our cultural life ways. That's the bigger part of warriorhood. And I think, what we're trying to do with this camp for young Native men is to sort of.
Yeah. And Dr. Tately just froze up, but I feel like too, doing the right thing and being supportive in the right thing, doing the right thing is not always the easiest thing. And I think our young warriors need to be reminded, and just like everybody else, but it's important, because when I was young, I didn't always do the right thing, but I did the quickest thing or the immediate gratification thing and things like that. But to have supportive community, people patting you on the back and saying you're doing a good job, it's a good thing, what you're doing is really important. And I'm sure Dr. Stately and his group are feeling that around too, to help our young warriors, because that is just so important. And it's one of those things where Dr. Stately needs better internet, Haley. That's
He
all.
does. He needs that fiber optic.
Nobody wants to hear me ramble on. That's why we have such great guests like Dr. Stately, and here I am rambling on, and they go, "Wow, how did Robert Pilot get a radio show? He's like really incoherent and can't complete sentences." But
Got the fiber optic, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got the fiber optics, so I'm like way ahead of half you people out there. But hey, I want to just say, if you're listening to the show, you're part of the resistance from Chief Plenty Coops. The ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office, and vote like you're a Gen Z. We're still here. We are the seventh generation. As Wendy always says, free Leonard Peltier now.
Now.
Attention all loons. Crooner Supper Club is hosting the first annual Loons on the Lake